Oh boy, Etsy has had quite the week. So, if you're watching when this goes up, a week ago, here in the UK, the BBC ran an article about Etsy, and it didn't paint it in the best light, unfortunately. It was all about the payment reserves and how Etsy's inconsistent and harsh payment reserves were crippling some UK businesses. In fact, I'm going to read out the title. Etsy accused of destroying sellers by withholding money. Now, I'm not going to read out the whole article. It's on the BBC website if you'd like to have a look. Essentially, some Etsy sellers have been caught up with the payment reserves and having a huge chunk of money withheld for up to 90 days and only given a few hours notice in a very generic email from Etsy. I mean, let's face it, most of us know that Etsy are pretty sparse with details when they tell you that they're doing something. So they didn't know exactly why their money was being withheld, just that it was being withheld and it was for this amount of time. Now, I've seen a range of opinions as to whether this is fair or not, or even whether it's the fault of the sellers for not having like a lump sum of money that they can dip into when something like this happens. Respectfully, I'm keeping my opinions on that to myself because I know at least that not all businesses are the same. Some people can't hold an amount of money in savings. And when we're talking about the figures that are mentioned in this BBC article, it's in the thousands. So even if you did have some savings, that takes you only so far. So this is an issue, and we know it's an issue. Most of us, though, are fully aware that Etsy is a rocky ride to be on. One thing that did strike me about this article, though, was the amount of people that said Etsy was their sole source of income, which, if you saw my video from last week, you will know how I feel about that. Oh, never rely on Etsy to be your only source of income. That is just asking for trouble. From someone who knows firsthand, I've made that mistake. Don't do it. Do not only sell on Etsy. Sell on other marketplace platforms. I'm getting excited. Sell on other marketplace platforms if you must. Have a website, and some of these sellers, because they're making that kind of income, arguably they can invest in a website. And yeah, just don't, because you cannot trust Etsy. They don't care about the sellers. They care about making money, and they will implement things, and sometimes they mean well, but often the things that they roll out and that they try to implement are not always fit for purpose. Let's just leave it at that. Anywho, so much of that article was a bit sort of samey, I've heard it before. Sorry to the sellers involved, but I was a bit kind of like, yeah, it sucks, but you know, we agree to this when we set up an Etsy business. And if you are going to sell things and have a sudden influx of sales, or you're going to have long turnaround times, or if you're not going to send things out tracked because it's too expensive. Again, there are reasons why people might do all of these things, and I understand this, but you do gamble. That is a gamble with your shop, with your items, with your money, and you have to go in with your eyes open. That's my personal opinion. So much of this article, as I say, was like, yeah, okay, until we got to the bottom. And it was just one simple sentence. I shall read it out, because I can't be trusted to remember anything. The BBC understands that a representative of Etsy has met with UK government officials. Oh, now that got my attention. And also the Small Business Commissioner, Liz Barkley, was in this article quite a lot as well. So it wasn't just disgruntled Etsy sellers going to the BBC and the BBC writing an article about it because, well, hey, let's fill our space with something. It was a little bit more, ooh, okay, this has got the attention of others. Notable others. And as I say, it was that last sentence that really got my attention, because I was like, who? What department within Etsy were they working? Was it their legal department? Was it, you know, their payments reserve department, if such a thing exists? I saw someone on in the forum saying it was probably an intern. Don't be bloody stupid. Etsy are not going to let an intern represent the entire company to the UK government. Behave. And also has met with government officials. Not has been contacted by government officials, but met with. There has been a meeting of. That's a bit more official than Etsy has been contacted for comment, which is often how these articles end. And all of this came mere days before Etsy were due to do an investors report, which happened, where are we? Today's Thursday, so yesterday. And I've got a quote here from good old Josh. Consumers continue to make very tough choices on where and how to spend their money, and we're fighting hard to help our sellers get their share, Etsy CEO Joshua Silverman said on a call with investors. Oh, I don't doubt that they're fighting very hard, but on our behalf? No. But anyway, now we come to the juicy part, because as I say, today is Thursday. That article hit the news on Monday, and now the BBC has come out with a new article. Let me read the title. Etsy U-turn in row over withholding sellers' money. Now, I'm not going to lie, but I did not see that coming. I mean, don't get too excited. This is Etsy, and I'm about to break that down. Online marketplace Etsy has said it will change its policy after sellers complained of money being held. I know. The U-turn comes after the BBC reported that some sellers had 75% of their money frozen for 45 days. I'm listening. Etsy said it was substantially decreasing the amount of money it would put on hold, but did not state the new rate or time frame. I'm not going to lie, I did laugh at this. Sellers like Dan, who said Etsy had £7,000 of his takings on hold, said the announcement lacked detail. Welcome to Etsy. This is what they do. Also, I don't know the exact time of that announcement, but I'm willing to bet it was before the investor report. Like I said, it's been an interesting week for Etsy. The investor report, by the by, was also a bit of a doom and gloomy one. Of course, they would have tried to put their positive spin on it, but I think we all saw it coming, didn't we? Why am I laughing? Maybe because it just feels like a little bit of karma, if you believe in such a thing. Etsy's tension with seller has sparked boycott calls and raised pressure on the company, which on Wednesday reported a decline in profits. In the months April to June, its profits fell to $61.9 million, down by 15% compared with the same time last year. I mean, who couldn't see that coming? At least anyone who was paying attention. And then Liz Barkley cropped up again, saying Small Business Commissioner Liz Barkley told the BBC that sellers are very disappointed that the statement from Etsy about its treatment of seller funds was unclear. I can understand that they were disappointed. Are they surprised? Because they shouldn't be. This is what Etsy does. I'm closing my laptop. Right, so have Etsy done a U-turn? Yeah, kind of. They've said they're going to do this, so they do actually have to follow through. But they've been very wishy-washy about how much they're going to reduce the thing by, the reserves, and the period of time. So here's my take on it, if you're interested. Now, I kind of feel for them a little bit. Yeah, I know, I'm playing devil's advocate. Bear with me. Some of these sellers joined Etsy in 2021. I've been on Etsy since 2007. Over time, you start to see how they work, and you know what, I'm just going to say it. Ever since Josh Silverman became CEO, the state of play at Etsy changed considerably. The feel of the company and the platform changed considerably. And as a seller, you had to learn to accept certain things. My biggest gripe about Etsy has been its attitude towards sellers. Not even so much the things that they have rolled out and the bloody awful way they've gone about it a lot of the time, but specifically the way they even speak about sellers, specifically handmade sellers, which have been hippies at the flea market. And now they seem to be leaning back into the handmade, handcrafted, hippies at the flea market aesthetic because, oh, wouldn't you know, the company's reputation is kind of based on that. I'm glad they finally caught up. However, too little too late. As I said, a lot of those sellers joined in 2021 and mid-pandemic, mid-lockdowns, mid-boom. And the lockdown part is important because I can remember when even here in the UK, New York was in the news quite a lot for being just a bit of a, I'm trying to use my words carefully because YouTube doesn't like certain words. Shall we say that there was a certain illness doing the rounds that New York was particularly struggling with at the time. Where is Etsy's headquarters based? Oh, right. Yeah, the place where nobody could go to the office to work in. You get my point. Everybody was like away. Running Etsy became a kind of just trying to keep the plates spinning, I'm guessing. It also became the busiest time in Etsy's existence. Sellers just went whoom, and let's be honest, scammers went whoom. While the cat's away, the mice did play. And they have been trying to curb that, which is a good thing. We shouldn't be having a go at them because they're trying to make it harder for scammers to take over the platform. The issue is the way that they've done this, and its inconsistency, and once again how badly they are communicating things to sellers. This is the problem. It's so inconsistent. It's inconsistent with the amount of money that they hold back. It's inconsistent with how long they hold it back for. They are terrible at their communication, and this is the problem with payment reserves. The need for payment reserves, however, exists. So it's a really tricky one to balance, and I'm going to give them that. I appreciate that they are at least open to feedback. Just a shame that it takes the UK government intervening in order for them to do that. And I hope they really do take the chance to look more closely at the payment reserves, not just for the UK, but for all sellers globally. Will they though? Probably not. Let's be honest, they're going to do the bare ass minimum that they can get away with doing. Now for us as sellers, it's going to come back to this. Stop trusting Etsy so much. If you are sending out big ticket items like some of these sellers were, you have to apply some form of tracking. If you don't, then the risk is on you, I'm afraid. It might happen. You might get a payment reserve, and that is Etsy's policies. It sucks, but it is what it is. Start your own website. Yes, it's a pain in the neck, and yes, it is an extra fee every month, but at least you don't have to worry about all of this stuff. Or at least spread yourself out onto other platforms. Don't rely on Etsy alone. This is not me putting the blame onto the sellers because it's not your fault. It simply is not your fault. This is just the reality for Etsy sellers because they will do stuff like this. And the BBC aren't always going to be there to make a big fuss about it in the media to force their hand. Sometimes, all the time actually, Etsy will push as far as they can push before they get pushed back. That's how they work. Just be aware that there are some things that make you susceptible to payment reserves. They are very regularly automatically slamming payment reserves on new sellers just because they're new. And they openly admit this. So be aware of it. Try and mitigate anything that would open you up to this. Like I say, long lead times, not applying some sort of tracking. If you're getting an influx of orders, think about putting your shop on vacation mode, because it is better to do that for a period and get some orders out than have them hold on to your money. I mean, I personally haven't been smacked with a payment reserve either, but if I did, my income wouldn't stop coming in because I don't rely on Etsy. And that is my takeaway from this video. That, and also having a bit of a giggle at Etsy's expense, because you deserve it, Etsy. You deserve it. Now, I for one would be really interested to hear of your own experience with payment reserves. Have you had one? How long did it take to get it lifted? How much of your money did they keep back? And has it put you off Etsy full stop? I really hope not. Now, if on the flip side of this, you're thinking, well, I haven't had a payment reserve because I'm not making nearly enough to warrant one. I hear you. You might like to watch this video next because it's basically me talking about a few things both within your control and out of your control which could be affecting your sales. So give that a watch and I'll see you there.